Hey there and welcome. When we talk about recovery from family trauma, it's never just a straight line, is it? Today, we're going to dive into something that's a really tough, but also a totally normal part of that journey. We're talking about those moments when emotions from your childhood just hit you out of nowhere, feeling just as raw and real as they did all those years ago. And this whole idea, this plunging back in time, well, it has a name. A retired clinical psychologist, Dr. Lane Lasater, calls it plunging into childhood consciousness. So what on earth does that mean? And, more importantly, why is understanding it just absolutely critical for anyone on a healing path? All right, let's get into it.
Okay, first things first. We gotta set the stage with a really core idea. It's so important to remember this in recovery. As kids, we were all just doing the best we could, with the tools we had. I mean, even in the most difficult situations, children come up with these incredible, sometimes ingenious ways to just cope, to survive.
But here's the kicker. Even years, maybe decades later, after you've done so much work, so much healing, those old feelings can just bubble up to the surface. And when they hit, wow, they can feel just as huge and overwhelming as they did when you were little. And this is exactly where Dr. Lasater's own story really sheds some light on what's going on.
So Dr. Lasater, he shares this really personal story that just nails this experience. And it's such a powerful reminder, right? Because here's this expert, a guy with decades of his own recovery work under his belt, and even he could get thrown back in time, totally out of the blue. For him, it all kicked off with a dream.
So get this, he was actually working on some stuff about trauma recovery, which, kind of stirred the pot of old memories. And then one night, he wakes up from this dream, and it was one of those dreams that was so vivid, it felt completely real.
And we're not just talking about a memory here. No, it was a full-body, completely emotional experience. It literally transported him right back into the mind, into the consciousness of his younger self.
And this is really the heart of it. In the dream, he's a little boy again. He's in the middle of this awful argument with his mom. And the feeling he describes is being catastrophically abandoned and alone. Wow. I mean, that word, catastrophic, it just perfectly captures the sheer power of these feelings from when we were kids, doesn't it? So what is actually going on here?
Well, this exact experience is what Dr. Lasater calls childhood consciousness. It's a very specific psychological state, and it's something that can catch any one of us completely off guard during our recovery. So let's break that down. What does he really mean by that?
The key thing to get here is that it's not just about, feeling a little sad about something that happened a long time ago. It's a state where you are emotionally back in the past. It's like for a moment, you completely lose access to your adult brain. All your wisdom, your coping skills, your perspective, it's all gone. You are just that kid again, feeling everything full force.
And yeah, this list, it really shows you what we're talking about. Helplessness, fear, shame, despair, these are those catastrophic feelings, the ones a child feels when they're trapped and have no power. Seeing them all laid out like this, it just validates how incredibly intense and disorienting the whole experience can be.
Okay, so if we know this can happen, if we know these feelings can just show up, what are we supposed to do about it? Well, this leads us to maybe the most powerful insight we're going to talk about today. It's a total shift in perspective about what the recovery journey even is.
And Dr. Lasater points out that this big idea, this profound shift, it didn't come from some dusty textbook. Nope, it came from one of his own mentors in recovery. It's one of those simple little nuggets of wisdom that just changes absolutely everything about how you look at these tough moments.
And here it is. He said, "I was always complaining about the ruts in the road until I finally realized that the ruts are the road." Just sit with that for a second. The ruts are the road. All those difficult, bumpy, painful parts of the journey, that childhood consciousness, those overwhelming feelings, they aren't obstacles that are on your path, they are your path.
So, where does that leave us? What's the big takeaway here? How do we actually use this idea to keep going when the past feels so incredibly present? It all comes down to a final, really empowering message.
The most important thing to get is this. When you experience these powerful feelings, it is not a sign that you're failing. It's not a sign you're going backwards. It is not a setback. It is actually a sign that your mind and your body are doing the deep, necessary work of healing. The ruts are the road, remember.
And really, it all boils down to this simple but powerful piece of advice. Keep the faith. You have to trust the process. And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. What if the things that we think are our biggest obstacles aren't obstacles at all? What if they are, in fact, the only way forward?